to the spa. There's a difference. And that feels a line where like golf, I'm like, if I was a golfer and I was designing bags.
Sure. I think though what's great about hearing your story from all, is the multiple iterations of it. And that for any young aspiring or newbie biz people that may be listening to this or listen to it in the future, to remember that like it may on the outside, on Instagram with some of these influencer type people look like these things, these empires just have always been. Yeah, exactly. And that it's like constantly tweaking and refining and getting more clear and getting more clarity around, who you are, what value you provide, and like finding that alignment with the people out there who are looking for the thing that you're putting out into the world, right?
Totally. That's it. And when I found the spa market, and especially being in Phoenix, I'm like, oh, this is a market I can literally pound the pavement and hit.
Yes.
All the resorts that are in my backyard, like just down the street from where I live, and then replicate that in other places. And there's a, not organization, like a member, it's called,
like a trade organization.
Yeah. Thank you. International Spa Association. And it's, every Four Seasons, Ritz-Carlton, Fairmont, Hyatt buyer will attend these shows, and they're phenomenal. I went last year, and it's a week-long trade show in Vegas, and the majority of people there are like estheticians and massage therapists, and they're learning about the latest technology or whatever and going to wellness workshops. So I was, there's a lot of jewelry, but the majority is like skincare, and I had a booth, and buyers would come, and they loved it because I stood out in that industry.
Yeah, something different.
Listen to one more eye cream, thing. And I was like, oh, cool. Because if I was at a fashion trade show, it would probably be like, I can't hear one more bag pitch.
Oh, right.
But here, I really stood out, and the message so resonates. And then it's one of those things that's like, once you say like, okay, this is my portfolio of where I'm carried, they're like, oh, you're at Four Seasons, you're at Silver Oak Winery, you're at Hotel Yountville, like very high end in the hospitality industry, well known. And so,
so I have to imagine once you kind of break in, then it's easier to continue to get into more accounts, right?
It's tight industry. So a lot of them will leave one. I'm at Four Seasons Austin, and the buyer left when on maternity leave. Now she's at Thompson Dallas, which is a Hyatt. And she brought me in because she remembered, so it's a lot of that type of opportunities happening. And
yes. It's so also interesting to think about, I'm sure, in your business marketing classes, right? Learning about niching and niching down. And we hear a ton of that, especially like also in the online coaching and online creation, content creation world, right? Like niche. But that's tricky to figure out at first, right? Like there is an evolutionary process. I don't think you just like out of the gate, we see lots of people who iterate their businesses and then they hit on a thing. And also I feel like, and I'd love to hear, I'm sure you'll get there at this part of your story too, like pivoting relating to what's going on in the world. I mean, you completely had to pivot certain parts of your operation during COVID. And so, understanding that it's not a static thing, it's an alive, in motion, constantly evolving organism of itself. Yeah,
absolutely. And that niche thing, I think it's so fascinating, and I 100% agree with it. But I also think right out the gate, sometimes you can be like, yeah, I'm going to do this niche, and that works. And other times through trial and error, you're like, oh, spa. I would not have thought of spa out the gate. And then I have people pitch me. It's like, do golf pro shops. And so it's like, I try that. And I'm like, not a fit. And other people are like, you got to do the online game, and we're going to like make you this blogger influencer. And then I'm like, that wasn't a fit for series, but trying to help me. And like, I pivot and back away from that. And so it's just like, okay, let's try this, let's try that. And then the spa resort market has worked. And I've also found that for my price points, a woman that can stay at Mountain Shadows and Four Seasons and go have a $300 massage isn't going to balk at my prices. Or he's there on a conference, he's like, I'm going to get my wife a nice bag. It's the market I've always wanted without having to play the Nordstrom's Neiman Marcus game.
Right.
That's ever going to be the game I'm out to play for multiple reasons. And
sure.
As a startup,
and it seems like you're a boutique brand.
Yes. And I love that.
Yes.
I really love that.
Yeah. So I'm curious where, and perhaps it just has evolved and developed, the trust in yourself to continue to, and who knows what it looked like along the journey, right? Like not be attached to it being golf, right? Because you could have done that, tapped out, and then been like, well, it didn't happen because I thought it was golf and it didn't happen, right? Like you could have thrown the towel in then. So where did the trust in yourself to be flexible and resiliency, coming into play as far as like, I'm not going to be attached to this being it, and trusting your intuition, I'm assuming, right? Like this doesn't feel right. So talk me through a little bit of what that in one of those instances may have sounded like, probably the golf transition and then spa, right? And looking from up here, if there was a map or a blueprint of your business, right, we would see that the golf is what got you the next step closer to spa, right? Like you didn't jump right there. It was another step in the wheel. So like, I'm curious, there's a lot of questions for you all in one, but hopefully you're able to synthesize sort of.
Well, golf, being that a lot of golf is at high-end resorts, so it's kind of like a sister cousin concept. Intuition is such a core foundation and pillar. Like there's a couple of things that I really want Soul Carrier to be remembered for, and I want the content to kind of come through, even though it's bags, the branding of trusting your gut, trusting your soul. It always knows the way, and it's always, I think, the most aligned answer. Like there's so much noise and chatter.
So much noise.
Right? It's like, blah, 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 and just commentary, right? That to get still and quiet and be like, well, what's in here? What's in here? And to come back to that. And one of the last questions my mom ever asked me was, and we're in the car, and she turns around and she's like, where do you want to go? And we're talking about vacation, but that's it. And seconds later, the car spins out of control and the tire blows out and crash, and then that's it. And I'm like, it's pretty powerful. That's the last thing my mom believes.
Yeah.
And so I want to inspire other people and then be like, ask yourself that question. No one should give you the answer but your soul. Listen to what your soul wants of where you want to go, because otherwise it's that outside noise and chatter. And then another concept, my friend Cameron, I took him down to Leon with me to help with just strategizing, and he spoke beautiful Spanish. And I had all these ideas, and I'm here and there, and he's like, whew, I'll rein you in, Jen. And he's like, true north. What's your true north? Like, where do you want to go? Which parallels with my mom's question. And he's like, let's square everything up against that. And like, maybe you're not going to get everything done, but you pick your top 2 or 3. And so I've always looked at it as choices, decisions, forks in the road come across your path, because they will on a daily minute basis. You go, what is my true north? And the true north is that vision, goal, destination. And so I find I can find clarity when I'm like, here's my true north. If I say yes, is it going to move me closer? Is it going to take me on a tangent?
Yes.
The answer could be either way, right? But it's like, it gives you that point and compass. And so, but I've had to learn like trusting, because so often it's like, someone will come in and it's like, golf, or like, let's spend all this money on SEO ads, and then you'll do this. And I'm like, is that my true north? Is that where I want to take this? And when I get still and quiet, there always is a little voice being like, no. Go reroute, Jen. But it's tough, because I think I want to balance those that have gone ahead of me that are wise and know, with being like, just because they've gone ahead doesn't mean it's applicable to my brand and my life and my business. And I'll often trade off or give my power away. Be like, they've got it figured out, so I should be all in with their vision. And I often find that the times I get off course the most, it's when I give my power away. When I think their strategy is the magic pill.
Right.
Give me this tremendous success. And then all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, we got to reroute. Like, it's like flashing check engine light. Like, this is not work.
Doesn't feel right for you. Yeah.
No. And, Tim Ferriss, a big podcast queen.
Me too.
Says that when you he'll say no to people or change strategies. And he's like, when they get upset, he'll often be like, oh, it's that kind of party? Good to know, you know, and I'm always like, oh, actually, even if they do get upset and throw a fit, thanks for showing me, because now I have clarity that we're not going to continue on this journey together.
Right.
I need to part ways as far as working on Soul Carrier. So, but it's sometimes hard because I'm like, why do I have to get all the way to where it's like flashing red light?
Yes. I think you're getting clear. I mean, just in watching from the outside and knowing when we had that initial conversation in 2017, I feel like I can see that you're listening to yourself more and your own voice. That doesn't mean you're not getting professional feedback or insights from mentors or coaches or whoever else is in your camp. But I do remember, I think you were right in that phase where there was someone who had come in and was trying to give you this advice and whatnot. And I could see that you were like, this just doesn't feel right, but this person's an expert and whatnot. And so kudos to you for growth, girl. It's beautiful to witness.
It's hard when you're in the fire, like, ow, this, you know, but sometimes I think the most beautiful growth is the one where you really have to burn. And then it doesn't serve you.
Well, perfect segue into collectively we were in a year of burn, right? And so how did that impact your business? And tell us about some of the changes that I know that you made, and like, where are you kind of now 2021 early in? So kind of walk us a little through the 2020 stuff that you shifted to, and then where you're at now.
COVID, you know, exactly a year ago, I was going to a couple conferences, meeting the people who were like head of all the buying for Marriott and Ritz-Carlton. And it was just like, oh my gosh, this is the new year. I'm going to just crush it. And then I come home from those conferences. I myself think I picked up COVID because I was in New York and South Carolina, and the world just like shuts down. And the friend that I had mentioned, Cameron, who came up with the concept True North, he's since passed. He took his life 4 years ago, but I'm super, super close with his family and their family. So his brother-in-law, CJ, comes to me beginning of March, and he's like, mass. And I was like, what are you talking about, CJ? And he's like, why don't we do mass? Like Soul Carrier mask, and you could do fun sayings and inspirational. And I'm like, okay. And at this point, he was like, should you wear masks? Should you not? Not a ton of people were doing them. So I was like, well, I knew enough contacts. I know who we need to turn to for screen printing, all the things, which is also, it was amazing because everything I had done with the bags, like my Rolodex of contacts is pretty deep and rich. And so I'm like, okay, we're going to call this guy to import fabric. We're going to go to this guy to screen print. And we're going to go to this group of fabricators here in town that like have sewing capabilities and sewing machines. And so we just hustled. We got a mask made. CJ had a contact, and we got on the news. We were like on a Fox 10 Good Morning News. And Cammie, it was nuts because we're like, we don't know, this will last a week, a couple months.
Right.
We don't know what's happening with COVID, but the world is shut down. And I was like, let's film at Mountain Shadows just to give them some love because they're one of my best accounts. So we wrap up filming, and I'm thanking the GM, and I was like, oh, wow, CJ, I got a couple sales. I used Shopify for my e-commerce platform. And I was like, I think we got like 10 sales. This is cool. People watched. No more than 10 minutes later, I walked to my car, and I'm like, CJ, I have 500 emails. And it was like go time. And so we were literally doing just in time. Things would come in, the orders would come in, we'd print everything out, and we'd have to figure out, okay, well, she ordered 10 today, but she ordered 2 yesterday. Do we fulfill the really big order?
Gosh.
And running around, I mean, we would run to the post office. It'd be like, I'd come home, 9 o'clock was the cutoff. And so I'm like, all right, well, at least they got out today. Come home, do emails, get up early, do it all over again. And it was a mad and crazy rush. And then a couple of weeks later, we got on GQ.com.
Well, and so when did you switch from the cloth masks to then it was like these high fashion leather masks? I was like, look at her just up level that game real quick.
So all along, we're like, okay, we'll do the cloth ones. This is what's needed. but it kind of would be fun and a little cheeky. And I've got all this scrap leather. So that was happening in the background while the big push was the cloth and knowing that the majority of people would buy the cloth and the price points were like $14, $12. But then I turned to my factory